Uh,
Hey, everybody, welcome again to Career Talks with Poulsbo Rotary. And I'm here with my friend Dan Weedin. Dan, welcome to the Career Talks program.
Well, I thank you. I feel like I'm going into a classroom that my daughters had somewhere in second or third grade for career day. Is that what we're doing here?
That's pretty much what we're doing. And I think
Okay.
and what's fun, Dan, I mean, you've had a diverse career the way I have, the way a lot of people have. And as we look at these three simple questions, we're talking with Rotary members. There's so much interesting history that people have. And if you looked back down the road of your career path, what's been one of the most rewarding chapters of your career?
Boy, it's really a hard question for us, but I guess I would say this, and it might surprise some people. Probably the most rewarding chapter was a period of time between 2010 and 2013 when business was at its worst. It
Oh,
was I had failure after failure. The business continued, so the business didn't fail, but it was hard. It was probably, coming off of the recession and probably a lot of mistakes that I made along the way. And my mom and dad both dying kind of during that time frame, and
boy.
assisted living and all of that. And so I would say I would call the dark years of about 2010 to 2013, when I look back, were the most rewarding.
That is a really, really cool, because what you're describing is how we can look back on the reversals. We're all going to run into a couple of guardrails in life, but to take that and to see that as a rewarding history and a rewarding memory, Dan, that's what we're looking for here. Because what's the takeaway? What did you take from that? What did you learn from that you could put into words?
Well, failure is necessary. Disappointment is necessary for resilience. In order to get the ultimate rewards of entrepreneurship. You're right. There's more than a few guardrails that are hit, and I like to use golf as a metaphor. There's a whole bunch of sand traps and bunkers and water hazards, and
Yeah.
there's also landing in a few divots. You can hit some good shots in the fairway and land in a divot somewhere.
No.
The reality is that all of the failure, all of the disappointment, we have to learn to be resilient. We're either going to give up and I hate to put it this way, but give up and go find a job working for somebody, or we're going to find a way through.
No.
And so though that period of time was really difficult, I learned a lot. I learned that I could persevere. I learned that I could be resilient, and I learned that I could make it another day. And so I think that without having gone through that, what it has become a rewarding, but it's always been a rewarding entrepreneurial career. It actually just can't be done. It's necessary for business. It's also necessary for life.
I think for sure it seems inevitable to have these times where great plans might get a little crushed under the bus, or whatever the metaphor is. But I have a lot of respect for what you're saying, man, because again, I think there can be a tendency to think life ought to be easy. I've fallen into this trap. Life ought to be easy. And if it isn't easy, well, then I'm just going to give up, or whatever you might say. And, I think that probably makes you a better author, a better counselor, a better support guy in the work that you do, that you've been through a couple of rough times. I can say the same for me as a real estate broker. I don't take it lightly when people struggle with these kind of things. So if you were to, you're already touching on it, but if you were to give some kind of supportive advice to somebody who's on a career track, you're kind of touching on it, but what else would you add?
So when you say career track, just to be certain, are you talking an entrepreneurial career
Sure,
track?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, here's my advice, and it would have been the advice I'd given myself 17 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and number one, it's not easy, and it's not for everyone.
Mm,
You have to be prepared to have failure, to have disappointment, to be discouraged. and you have to be able to rise above that. You have to be able to grind through it. You have to be able to learn from it and stay positive.
Yeah.
That, it's really about, my advice is it's going to be okay. It's really going to be okay, but you have to, the only way it's going to be okay is to remain positive and to keep fighting, to be resilient. And that's what it takes, because being an entrepreneur is not easy.
No.
It's very difficult. It's a lot of long hours and it's a lot of struggle but it's all worth it. And so my advice would be, if you're going to go into it with the knowledge that you are going to have failures and that it's okay. It's gonna be okay.
It's huge. It's huge. And it's not just a cliche, what you're saying. And, for all of our viewers of these programs, you put a lot of this kind of work into the books that you've written, Dan, and your most recent one, The Back Nine, Walking the Back Nine. That's talking about the second half of life and some of the lessons that I'm guessing you hope for people to get a hold of and to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Sweet. Well, that's fabulous. I like it. Thanks so much. To me, these are not cliche kind of things. You look back on that tough time. How did you pull through? Did you have a particular kind of support you got from somebody else? Did you do it, from within, or what was this sort of blend of who gave you a hand up?
Yeah. First of all, these cliches are cliches for a reason, because they've all happened and they're true. Yeah. And so you're right. There are cliches for a reason. Look, none of us can be brilliant by ourselves. First of all, I have an incredible support with my wife, who at the time she was my wife, but she wasn't my business partner, so to speak. She is today. But I had my wife as a huge support. My family is a huge support. My daughters, everybody was supportive. And that's why I like to try to be as supportive and encouraging to others. All that being said, and I want anybody who's gone through this to think about themselves. As much support and hand up and help that we've all had, we've also had to have some inner power, some inner strength. And we've had to do it ourselves. So I would tell everybody, give yourself some credit for the stick-to-itiveness, maybe the stubbornness, just the plain old stubbornness of not giving in, because I'm a competitor. I've always competed, and we are in a competition in this, not from a manipulative sense, but we are competing every day.
Sure.
And so it needs help. We all need help. We all need support. And I certainly got it, including from my Rotary brethren.
Nice.
Yeah. You have to also be able to kind of pull from within and be tough and be mentally tough during those times.
Right on, Dan. This is really good. And I think what you are pointing to also as part of our inner tenacity is that we're open to coaching, open to receiving support. Some people, they're going to tough it, go it alone, and actually they suffer in that process when they could get probably more support.
Well, and if I can just add, I've never been without a coach. I've always had my own coach from the very beginning. I've had several different ones. The one I'm with now, I've had for a long time, and that's going to continue. But I've never been without a coach. I don't know how somebody can do it without.
That is huge. And it's a real important thing because, again, it's like software. If you don't get a software update once in a while, life is complex and it's getting more so. It's really good to talk to you, Dan. I appreciate so much you're offering all this. Folks, you're talking to Dan Weedin and Forrest Arnold from Poulsbo Rotary's Career Talks. Thanks so much for being with us here, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay.